My name's Dunfield, and I'm the pastor of the St. Andrew's Baptist Church here in St. Andrews by the Sea. I'd like to start by reading from the book of Joshua, and a number of verses here, and then we'll talk a little about those verses. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, the son of Nun, "Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give to you, to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert of Lebanon and from the great river, the Euphrates, to all the Hittite country, to the Mediterranean Sea in the west. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I shall be with you. I will never leave you, and I will never forsake you. Be strong, be courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their ancestors to give them." So what's going on here? Well, 40 years prior to that, God called the children of Israel out of Egypt. Now that's an interesting story, and we can't get into it here, but there are a few things I'd like to tell you about that story. First of all, those were the people that had experienced the 10 plagues that fell on Egypt. Those were the people that passed through the Red Sea. Those were the people that had the cloud come down and give them shelter during the day and a fire at night that kept them warm. Those were the people that had experienced the commandments at Mount Sinai and the thunder and the lightning and the voice of God. Those were the people who were fed manna when there was no food to eat. Those were the people who were led by God right up to the border of the Promised Land. Now, the Promised Land today, we know it as Palestine, or as modern Israel today. And so they had come to the border, and they sent 12 spies in to spy out the land to see what it was that they were about to face. Now, God had led them out of Egypt to give them the Promised Land. Well, these 12 spies went in and they came back, and 10 of the 12 were petrified. They were scared to death. They went, "Wow, we can't do this. There are giants in that land to us. There's fortified cities. There's Hittites who are a warlike people. There are other people in there that are just wild. They're strong. There's lots of them. We're not able to do it." When I was a kid, we would have called that chickening out. And two, Joshua and Caleb, the same Joshua that God's writing to here in the passage I read, he said, "Hey, we can do it. Let's go in." But they were outvoted, and the children of Israel didn't go in. For 40 years, they traveled in the wilderness. And when the entire generation had died that had come out of Egypt, and a new generation had been risen up, they went up to go into the Promised Land once again. And God speaks to Joshua, and he says to him, "Be courageous and strong. I'll never forsake you. I am with you. And even though there are all kinds of problems in the land, all kinds of things that you could be frightened of, remember, I'm leading you, I'm directing you." You see, the children of Israel weren't to focus on the problem. They were to focus on the victory that God would give them. They were to focus on taking the land. God would deal with the problem. Instead of trusting in God 40 years before, they turned away and they spent 40 years in the wilderness. And they allowed their fear to defeat them and overcome them. It's a lot like us right now. There are a lot of people who look at the problem and see how big it is. And they can't comprehend how would they ever tackle such a situation in their life. The problem with Israel was the same problem that you and I face. It wasn't that the Hittites were the problem, or that the land had fortified cities, or the people were warlike, or to the Israelites they looked like giants. The problem lay with the Israelites. They allowed fear to control the situation, and their fear had stopped them from doing what God had said they could do. You know, one of the things that fascinates me about COVID-19 is how many people have become fearful. We live in a world now where fear is written on the faces of people all the time, and fear has begun to control people's lives. And instead of seeing that the victory that can be had over this, it's a virus, people are stunned by it. They're held in captivity to it. They turn on the television at night and they hear all this bombardment about deaths and everything, and people after a while, they don't want to go out, they don't want to talk to people, they don't want to do anything. They become fearful. And fear has a lot of bad circumstances that we'll talk about in just a moment. But in John, the 14th chapter and the 7th verse, God writes this: "Peace is what I leave you. It is my own peace that I give to you. I don't give it as the world gives it. Don't be worried. Don't be upset. Don't be afraid." God tells us, He tells the Israelites, "As I was with Moses, so I shall be with you. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. Be strong and courageous." And what I'd like to say to you tonight is now is the time to be strong and courageous. You see, the problem isn't the virus. It's not COVID-19. It's how you respond to it with your life. Of course, we should be cautious. We should follow what we're told to do, keep the distancing, all these kind of things. You know, it's good to be prudent. It's good to be watchful. And I think that has really helped keep the number of cases down. But we also need to live our life without fear. Our problem in Canada isn't going to be so much the virus, but what takes place after the virus and its effects upon us. Depression, anxiety, loneliness, paranoia. Already, psychotherapists, family counselors are seeing a big uptick in the number of people trying to get help because they've been paralyzed almost with fear. It has just taken them by storm. And as a result, their lives have been changed. And let's hope that's not the new normal for those people. Let's hope that those people will be able to get back and be able to live their lives again in a normality that doesn't allow them to spend their lives huddled in their home, frightened of everything and everyone. So the question I've got to ask, are we ever going to be able to interact like we did before? Is the new normal something that might be new but not normal? Might it be really abnormal? Is having friends go out and walk on the street when they walk up to you so that they don't get close to you? When we go into grocery stores, have people point at the arrows on the floor. And actually, as a friend of mine told me yesterday, that people were actually screaming at him because he went the wrong way following the arrows. I mean, really? Is the new normal for us that we can't have many friends in anymore, that we can't have groups of people meet like we used to, that hugging is not allowed anymore? I don't know about you, but that doesn't seem to be normal to me. And I know our government and health officials say, oh, this is going to be the new normal. But is that really what we want? Do we want a life where we are followed by fear and we live in fear? You know, now they're beginning to say, a report just I was listening to this morning, says that people that have become excessively obsessed with cleanliness and not getting any of the virus at all, of just staying totally isolated, are going to be people that are going to be susceptible if there is a second wave. And so as a result of that, this paranoia, this fear, isn't what is normal for us as individuals. We need compassion. We need love. We need closeness. I've had a lot of illness in my life. As a young boy, I had a reaction and spent a year sick because of polio. I had MS and was really disabled with it for over 16 years. I have a situation where I've had 6 surgeries done on my kidneys. I have a tumor on my pituitary gland. I know what it's like to have illness. But I also know what it was like during many of those days that I was sick to have loved ones next to me, to have people care about me and be there for me, not to be isolated off by myself with everybody frightened to death that they might catch something from me. Instead, I had compassion and love. My mother sat next to me for weeks on end. I can remember having the mumps and having the measles. And I can remember my mom just being with me. And what a difference it made. I think that's something we need to look at. Now, I don't have the answers to all the problems. I don't even know how we should address them all. I think people that have scientific background in some of these things are doing their very best. I think our governments are doing their very best to help us. And I think we can be really proud of the way that our provincial government has helped and kept the COVID virus under control. But I'm concerned about my future, about your future, our children's future. I don't want us to grow up now and spend the rest of our life frightened and fearful. I want us instead to be like Joshua. And God said to Joshua, be courageous, be strong, don't be afraid. Don't worry about what's ahead, but put your trust that I will give you the victory. I will never forsake you and I won't abandon you, God says. And I believe those words. I've seen God stay with me throughout my life, through sickness and illness. I've seen Him be there. And I think that this is a time for us to put our faith and our trust, not in fear, but in the one who gives victory over fear and gives us courage and strength to tackle some of the tasks that might seem impossible for us. I want to see us smiling again. I want to see us go in the grocery store and start to talk to each other again. I don't want to see those arrows forever. I don't want to see people yelling at each other because they're going the wrong way on an arrow. It's time that fear doesn't control us. It's time that we become strong and courageous and put our faith in something where God can work through our lives and give us a peace that passes all understanding.